Well, if you talk about Bhagavad Gita and if it is asked that which is the best chapter, which is the most important chapter in Bhagavad Gita, they always say it is ninth chapter. And that chapter is called as Yoga of Sovereign Knowledge and Secret. So sovereign knowledge, sovereign is supreme, the highest, the best. It's nothing can be beyond that. So which is the highest thing which you should have to have in your life is nothing but the knowledge. And I don't know whether any of you know that there is a university by this name in Mount Abu. These BK people, they have that university, Brahma Kumaris people. So they have got a Rajyog Vidyapit in Mount Abu, and they are making abundant use of this particular chapter in dealing with all day-to-day activities and making the people balance their lives, balance their work and life, and so on and so forth. So they take the help of basically knowledge. So ninth chapter speaks about knowledge, and it says that isolated engrossment in work is a way to peace of mind. Now if you find all the knowledgeable people, you take the examples of all the scientists, even all these big photographs which are here, those were definitely knowledgeable. There are few cases, rather there are many cases, if you look at all the pictures, none of them were PhDs. Right? So PhD doesn't really always mean knowledge, so that is a kind of research people do and get that degree. But then having a knowledge, that doesn't mean you really need to have that much higher paper qualifications. What you need to have is knowledge. And knowledge cannot be replaced by a degree or any kind of a qualification that you get. It's only what I've been telling you, it's a practical use of whatever you have in your brain. And if you come across all the industrialists across the world, what they have done is whatever they have with them, whatever intelligence they have with them, they try to see to it that it has been useful for themselves initially, and then it went on to the entire world and was useful for the entire world, for human beings, because they had got knowledge and they try to make it into the practical it is. Now talking about isolated engrossment, isolated means separate, individual, aloof, away from the people, away from the crowd, away from more number of people being around you. So when you are isolated, it is practically found not only by spirituality perspective, but in general if you come across an isolation. So isolation is a word which very oftenly we use and we want to have that isolation in our lives. And isolation will help you to greater extent for focusing more, for increasing your concentration. So if you see the history of all the people who have become great, those have a habit of being in isolation for a certain amount of time, maybe in 1 day's time or maybe in 1 month's time, 1 week's time. They have their own way of having or being into the isolation. Because in isolation, you can be engrossed in your work. There is an example of Edison, who was one of the greatest scientists of the world. And there are many stories about Edison, or there are many stories about Newton. So all those scientists, they have got different stories. But then one of the specific things about all these scientists or philosophers or all management thinkers or all the people who had been into higher rank, that they have been keeping themselves in isolation for a certain amount of time. There was one story which was told about some scientist. I don't know which scientist he or she is, but then once it becomes a story, we can attach the name of that story to anyone. It is almost applicable. So this is the story of one scientist which was told to me that it is Edison who was doing some kind of research in his laboratory, and we all know that Edison was the person who invented light bulb. The first electricity bulb was invented by him, and it is also further said that he tried for almost 1,000 times and then he became successful. And we also speak about those motivational speakers will be telling to you that Edison tried for 1,000 times and then he could invent a bulb. If he would have left attempting in just first 100 times what we common people do, the bulb wouldn't have been there and all of us would have been probably in dark today. Point is that he was very much sustainable in his work. He was very much motivated with his work. He wanted to do whatever he has decided to do, and he didn't stop till the time he got that thing done. Swami Vivekananda has said one of the greatest sentence again of the world, Uttishtata Jagrata Prapya Valanni Bodhata, means get up, arise, awake and stop not till the goal is achieved. So that was, if that philosophy is made applicable to Edison, He kept on trying for 1,000 times. It is said, I am not sure whether it is true or not, but 1,001 attempt was the time when he got the bulb invented. So he was once working in his laboratory, and as I was telling you that all these scientists, they got a separate place in isolation where they work, because they can focus more, they can concentrate more. So he was once in his laboratory, and he has invited one of his friends for dinner. This is the story. So the friend comes, and he knows that Edison has got a lab where he is working. So he waited there near a dining table for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour. Edison was so engrossed in his work, so much isolated, he had just forgotten that he has invited some of his friends for dinner. So friend waited for almost 1 hour, 1.5 hours. So he was anyway sitting in a dining table, and he was a routine friend who used to come to him. So he himself took his dinner, he ate it, he went back home. After 1 hour, 2 hours, Edison came out of his lab, and then he saw there was a plate kept on a dining table, but it is finished. Somebody has done the dinner. So Edison came out, he saw the plate empty, the eaten plate, and then he said to himself, "Oh, I have already done my dinner," and he went back. The storyline meaning says that he was so much engrossed in his work that he has literally forgotten that he has not taken the dinner, and he has invited somebody for dinner, his friend, so to say. Point is that all these people work in isolation. I don't know how many of you do it, but then try doing it, keeping yourself in isolation for at least 5 minutes in a day in the morning and 5 minutes a day in the evening. You will find a different you probably in 1 week's time or 1 month's time. The more you be away from people, the more you keep yourself isolated, but for the sake of engrossing in some kind of work. Initially start doing it probably without doing anything. Just sit idle, sit in one corner which is very much away from other people in your home. Find out some such place, sit there for 5 minutes. I am not asking you to do any kind of meditation, no concentration exercise, no mind building exercise. Just sit idle, doing nothing. Obviously the mobile has to be kept at least 100 meters away from you. So sitting in isolation and having mobile with you, you can sit there for hours. That is not an isolation. So you have to sit in isolation but engross in some kind of work. Initially start doing by sitting, doing nothing, and then you during the 5 minutes time, 10 minutes time, go on increasing this time, and then you will get such a time where during that 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, you would be able to do some kind of a work which is not your routine work. So when you are in isolation, you are not expected to do the routine work unless and until you are used to it. Till that time, till you get practice, till you get acquainted with it, you can do nothing and just sit idle. And just increase this habit, and that will definitely help you in other effects of your studies also. It will help you a lot in bringing the concentration. So knowledge speaks about being in isolation, being engrossed in the work, and this attitude, this becomes an attitude. Being idle or being isolated, being engrossed becomes an attitude, leads to a stage where an individual begins to feel the presence of ultimate wisdom guiding personal cleverness. Such depersonalized intelligence. Depersonalized, opposite of personalized, means you don't have to consider anybody around you, you are yourself alone. This intelligence is the best suited for those who sincerely believe in the superiority of organizational goals compared to the personal goals. And this thinking, isolated engrossment, brought into the broader idea of management, that when you are thinking about your own development, because being isolated, being engrossed in your work will develop yourself, and when you develop yourself, it is very much easy to achieve your personal goals, which are directly, indirectly linked to the organization goals. And that's what we have been learning in Management Fundamentals and earlier few chapters here. So 9th chapter speaks about all these things. And if you could see it very clearly, you will see only one word very much obvious on the entire slide is knowledge. And if you read this sentence here, Peter Drucker has said, knowledge is the only meaningful resource today. Right? Forget about Bhagavad Gita, forget about Swami Vivekananda, who have been, we don't know how they were looking and how it actually happened. But these are the people who are still living. So what Peter Drucker said, knowledge is the only meaningful resource today. If you don't have knowledge with reference to 7th chapter, you cannot make it applicable, turning it into science. So knowledge, if you don't have, it cannot be converted to the science and it cannot be used anywhere. So you have to get knowledge, whatever you are doing in your MBA curriculum, that is definitely a knowledge which you are having one step above as compared to the other graduates like commerce, science, engineering. So you definitely will be getting 2 years of additional knowledge which other graduates do not have. I have told you the percentage of people who go for post-graduation, that has slightly increased to 15 to 16% today. But out of that, there is only 4% who go for management education, management post-graduation. What do you get is definitely knowledge. So which is the supreme knowledge? That's what 9th chapter speaks about. What is the supreme knowledge? There is no any particular branch of science which we can call that engineering is the best knowledge, medical is the best knowledge, not like that. So whichever you can become perfect according to your own abilities and intelligence. We have discussed yesterday about intelligent quotient. So with reference to that, whichever knowledge suits to your brain, you try to make it more engrossed in it, you try to develop yourself in it, and that will be supreme knowledge for yourself. So supreme knowledge doesn't mean that from the perspective of society or from the perspective of general trends in the society. For example, today analytics is supposed to be the best thing what you should have. That doesn't mean that analytics is a supreme knowledge. If you don't have it, you are not belonging to that particular knowledge. If you have it, whichever area you are working in, for that matter even history, geography, which we consider the most least important subjects. If we take the cognizance of history, and if I ask you what was the year when which Shivaji Maharaj was born, what is the capital city of say Venezuela, whatever questions I ask you, even if you do not know the answer, that probably might not matter today. But then if we extend the history from the perspective of research, there is a separate department called as archaeology, and there is one famous college in Pune called as Deccan College. So they are doing the research in this area to a greater extent that people from the entire world come to that college to study archaeology. Archaeology has become a branch of extended history. So whatever branch you select, may it be geography, history, may it be civics, may it be all those subjects which we have been thinking that those subjects are the ones which are not very much important in the life. To some extent, history, whatever we have learned, may not have direct application with the management. But people have come out with positivities of history or connection of history with management, as I have done Bhagavad Gita and management. People have done history with management. People have done a study of leadership qualities of Shivaji Maharaj, strategies, war strategies of Shivaji Maharaj. Incidentally, you might be knowing that all the strategic management, what we speak about in management or in MBA curriculum, all those have come from war. So all the war strategies are used in businesses or business strategies for a simple reason, because business also is said to be kind of a war between you and your competitor. So you have to win over your competitor. It is like a war, we can call it as a cold war. But then still, whatever strategies all the earlier First World War, Second World War, Third World War, whichever they were following, those were nothing to beat the competitor or to beat the enemy. What has happened here in Bhagavad Gita, also in overall Mahabharata, it was also a strategic fight between Kauravas and Pandavas. This happened at that moment when Arjuna decided not to fight. So point is, supreme knowledge is there is no any kind of definition per se of supreme knowledge. But the knowledge which is helping you to make your own progress, by the way, not the progress what general society or people would understand. Progress doesn't mean making more money. Progress doesn't always mean that going to a particular, rising to a level, becoming a CEO of some company. That may be a part of your progress. But then progress speaks more about Maslow's need hierarchy of your point. What is that? Self-actualization. So as far as you're getting that, you may not be getting other facilities, it's okay. Or reverse way, you are getting other facilities but then you don't have your self-actualization needs satisfied, then that progress doesn't remain. So supreme knowledge is the one wherein you can excel, wherein you can go up in the knowledge hierarchy. You must be clear about what you are learning, what you are trying to understand. So clarity of knowledge is must. Knowledge itself is abstract. That's what we have said in 7th chapter, knowledge and science. So knowledge, whatever we are understanding right now, again I cannot point it out. That's why we discussed yesterday, intangible. So knowledge is intangible. I cannot point it out, I cannot touch it. So knowledge itself is abstract. Abstract means something which is difficult to show, difficult to display, but its application will definitely be seen. That's what is the next word. So application of knowledge is must. Knowledge is the driver of the globe. Entire world revolves around knowledge. You must understand the importance of ignorance of knowledge. If you don't have a particular knowledge, you will be the person who will understand the importance if you don't have a knowledge in a particular area. I remember yesterday or day before I've said you that I am not a finance person. But because I don't understand anything in finance. I don't understand what happens in mutual funds. I don't understand what happens in share market. Because that is not my area. But fine, that is one very niche area. Even if I don't have any knowledge about it, that's okay. But then being a director or being at a very much authoritative position, I should be able to know the financial transactions which are happening in that organization. So that's why I've told you that after becoming a director for last 12 years, I've now started understanding, reading all those financial statements. Before that, I never bothered also. But at this position, I need to improvise, I need to be clear about what knowledge I need to have, and the things which I do not know, I must be able to understand. If I ignore about that particular thing, what will happen to my organization? So as you go up to the hierarchy, if you just check the designations, you are there joining as a junior manager or maybe an executive. Then you go to the next level as senior manager. Then you go to assistant vice president or AGM, assistant general manager. Then you become general manager. Now why this person is called a general manager? Why not specific terminology is given to him as say a research and development engineer or software development, business analyst? Why that person who is probably the head of analytics department is called as general manager analytics? Can somebody give it a thought that why that word general manager is used? Why not a specific manager? It's because of this particular fact. That a general manager can not be ignorant about all other streams of the organization. A general manager marketing, general manager finance, GM HR, GM production, GM MIS, GM R&D, GM inventory, whatever number of departments you have, the in charge is always called a general manager. The reason is that any manager taking any decisions, being the head of that particular department, whatever decision is taken by that manager, general manager, so to say, that decision is going to affect other all departments directly, indirectly. That vision, that ability, that knowledge that manager is expected to have, therefore it is called a general manager. General means who is having the vision, or what we can say bird's eye view of I would say the effect of his decision taken and affecting the all other departments. That's why all those managers are called a general manager. So if suppose for example general manager marketing decides, a common example which I have been giving, that next year we want to increase our sales target by 10%. So now to achieve this target, a general manager has taken a decision to get the targets increased to 10%. Don't you think that the other departments will get affected because of it? When I want to sell 10% more, and if I am saying say lakhs of commodities of my product, I have to make an increase of 10% of production. Now when I am supposed to increase the 10% of production, there has to be material supply accordingly abundantly available, whichever is required for that additional 10%. I have to have those many vendors available. I have to have those vendors working them at a very proper time. I have to have finance department clearing all the deals. I have to have all the HRs working probably right now. They are working in general shift for increase in 10% of production target. We might have to work for one more additional shift. So HR people will increase their salaries, their perks, benefits given to them on overtime working. Everything will increase. So one smaller decision, it may be very small, it may be very big, that is going to affect the all other departments. If you as a manager don't have that ability and you are ignorant about the effect of your decision, then you cannot reach to that point. Here all the discussion summarized, this discussion summarizes, if you are ignorant about the particular things, then you might be a big failure. So you must be aware about what is going to happen if I don't have the knowledge of in that particular area.